dead grandmother. You know what they call ancestors? Built from dead people.
So I got up this morning. And can I sip?
Of course you can. And you can vape.
Very comfy like that.
Good morning and welcome. It is a brand new week. It is a brand new month. Oh my God, it's November already and we're downhill towards the end of the year. Got one of these, a friend of mine bought me one. It's a fidget cube. And for someone who has concentration problems and, you know, I doodle when I'm on the phone, I need to be doing two things at once. So this keeps me very busy. You press buttons, you move the little joystick. Got a switch that does nothing. You got a little rollerball mouse type thing. You've got little wheels. You've even got this wheel here, which makes a noise. How cool is that? You know, I'll tell you what, this thing will probably bring me more joy than if you had to buy me something for 5,000 Rand. I'm a simple person. Good morning. It is a brand new week. It is a brand new month. And here to celebrate that, as well as the podcast awards, which happened over the weekend, is winner of one of those podcast awards, the great Lyn Jaffe. I've known Lynn for years.
Morning.
Thought we'd get her in here. How are you?
It's early.
It is early. Congrats, Mazel Tov on the award.
Thank you very much.
Nice stuff.
Yeah.
Oh,
Podcaster of the
sorry
year.
I woke you up so early.
Well, I actually slept over because it's actually traffic, you know.
Well, it's nice to see you. And
Thank you.
we're going to talk a little bit about your award in a moment. We'll talk about a whole bunch of other things too. We got Dr. Hanan today. We've also got a guest joining us a little bit later on. I think it's all going to be very, very cool for the start of your week. If you're wondering where Leanne is, she lost her dad just a couple of days ago. So she's unfortunately taking this week off. So give her a break for a couple of days and we'll hopefully have her back next week.
I'm
But
sorry to hear that.
she's okay.
Sharon,
Yeah.
it's
It's a shit
hectic.
thing to happen, huh?
You can't work.
No.
It's just your whole
You know,
life.
well,
just-
she's got the funeral this week and all of
Oh.
that stuff. And,
I know it.
you
Been
know,
there.
she doesn't want to, don't have to deal
You can't
with me
act
as
as
well.
if. You
No,
know.
of course. Hell no. All right. So anything exciting happen over the weekend? Not for me. I spent the entire weekend doing nothing. And I haven't had one of those weekends for a long time. I often say I'm doing nothing and then something crops up, but I actually did nothing.
It's the best.
Lynn, it was so nice. I tidied up my house. I did a little bit of sort of taking care of the garden. I went to the shops. I ate a lot of salad, and that was my whole weekend.
But
So-
you know what they say. When you know you're getting old and the phone
Oh,
rings on
big
a
time.
Saturday night and you pray to God it's not for you. It's getting there.
That's exactly what happened to me. So I was so excited. On Friday, one of my friends actually called me and said, "Listen, what are you doing? We're going out here or there." And I said, "There's just not a chance in hell." So I had a very
It's beautiful.
healthy, happy weekend. I got
Solitude.
lots done. Yeah. Got lots done. So that was, we had a conversation just now before we went live about like introversion and extroversion, right? And that was the introvert me was busy this weekend. The extrovert me was kind of in hiding.
Mm.
And I
Banned.
think we're all both, right?
Mm. Well, like I said to you earlier, when I wrote, I've been trained as an extrovert to survive in the family because we were all, narcissists raising narcissists, and lately, sort of in the last 5-7 years, in writing and actually sitting down in a dark room having food passed under the door, and my friends would say, "Oh, but Lynn, you missed the Dacha seminar and you missed the rave. But you missed the sentence I wrote that took me 4 days to compile."
Wow, yeah.
And it brings out a different aspect of you. It sort of
Does
grounds.
it bother you when people say, "Are you an extrovert or an introvert?" Because it irritates me now. I'm like, I'm both.
Yeah, no, they get a clap.
Right? Yeah, it's both.
Well, it depends when. And in fact, Jung speaks about it's an orientation.
Jung. Okay, let's get deep straight away.
CG. There's an orientation. So if I'm orientated to perform for the visitors, for example, we were pulled out of bed in the nights. Parents were in showbiz, and we would have to do Following in Father's Footsteps at 2 a.m. on the piano. So you got to get
what
up.
What a childhood you must have had.
Oh, was it a childhood?
Raised like a veal.
And then you can just go in. If you go into, it's an interiority, I think, the introversion. I mean, you can get all, I don't know if you could maintain your introversion for long because you're a public figure. You can't just go to gigs and
be
sit
surprised.
in the corner.
Hey, I've got, again, the introvert part of me could very happily live in a cabin in the woods, have very little to do with anyone. But I think it's more of a fantasy than a reality. I do need people around me a lot of the time.
I didn't know before I wrote my novel that I could sit at a desk and focus. I've lost the ritual of it now.
Yeah, you had ADHD before it was a thing.
But do you know how many people are being diagnosed? Like middle-aged women have now got ADHD.
For sure.
They didn't know, and they're taking pills and they feel so much better. There's no pill for what we've got.
Well,
is there?
One of these days they're going to come up with something to sell us. Just you wait and see. It'll make us feel a little bit better. Speaking of middle-aged, I want to show you what Sophia Loren looks like. She's 90 years old. Have you got that picture, James? This woman is just, look at that.
No, she's amazing.
Okay, so that's her son and her granddaughter.
The smile looks better on her than on him somehow.
But, there's something about her that is just, and she's aged very gracefully. She hasn't had like a lot of work done or any of that stuff. She's got good hair. I mean, if she's had some work done, that's also okay. Who the hell cares, right?
But they always said about Sophia, her eyes are wrong, her nose is wrong, her mouth is wrong, but you put the whole thing together and she's magnificent. There's nothing specific.
Maybe that's it.
It's just she's just put it together, and of course the body.
Yeah.
I mean, she's looking.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some 90s that are not so great. This one, she's phenomenal.
She's amazing. She's the same age as my mom, actually.
Oh, really?
Who always, and in fact, my granny would always say, and I was walking up Louisboth Avenue, and somebody said, "How old are you?" And I said, "How old do you think I am?" And they said, 75, and she was 89. And I'm starting it's a little bit like, you're a, no. I'm actually just a Zulu girl trapped in the body of a juicy crone. I mean, what can I do?
Juicy crone.
Oh, juicy crone.
I love it. So, I mean, is the idea of people asking for someone's age, is that still considered rude?
I
don't like that guessing game, by the way. I don't like it when people go, "Now, guess how old I am." Because
no, but what's interesting?
I'm going to screw it up, right? There's a 99% chance I'm going to screw it up by a year or by 5.
Quite good. I can estimate, but because I am of a certain age, and so I'm going to, I never used to have a problem, and then I went to an agency and I mentioned my age, and the oak fell off the chair.
Oh yeah.
But the nice thing is, in a way, is that particularly white girls, in some way, from about 40 to about 80, you can't really tell. And of course, when we have our school reunions, all of us wrinkly girls are sitting there, and then
that's a good point. Between 40
someone
and 80,
in Botox.
You can't actually tell.
You can't really.
You can maybe get within the nearest decade.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like between 40 and the 80.
Let's say 40 and 70, but I haven't got there yet, so I'll let you know.
No. I mean, you're holding up well. You still wear the coolest glasses in the world.
Well, my entire medical aid is on my face. But an interesting. So the man I've been married to, Munir, it's just been decades. I can't even believe it. But he was turning 52. I was turning 47. We added it up. We got to 99.9, and we had our 100th on one of the Chinese New Year's some years back, and we just got over it. So we've turned 100.
And you don't count anymore. You don't worry about it.
From there.
Doesn't bother you.
I've never been a woman of vanity. I mean, I did put lipstick on for you this morning,
that's
but
very
I've never
sweet of you,
done
thanks.
the makeup, the looking, and then you do look in the mirror and you go, well, okay. Do you know that you can get silicone like lifts for cheeks now, and you just shove them
God.
on, and 25-year-old girls use it.
Really?
So I think the whole aging thing has youthened itself, so that 30-year-old girls are having Botox treatments.
Oh, they are.
The 11s. No.
That's it. And people
yeah.
are saying, oh, it's easy. You've got to get it, and you must get it in your 20s and your 30s so
Yeah.
that you so that you can keep up and stay younger for longer.
Yeah.
I don't know, huh?
And then
Like,
you've just got the same expression: grief,
Yeah.
joy.
And exactly. And I think also there's something to be said for like looking your age. It's not always a bad thing.
Well, for a woman of your age, you're looking magnificent today.
Thanks very much.
Did you
Thank you.
get the Botox last
I
week?
haven't, but I'm
you
seriously
tempted?
thinking about it. Well,
Mm,
I mean, so this friend of mine and she's not old, and she doesn't look like she needs it, but she says she goes just so that the frown lines don't look so hardcore,
and then you talk about introvert again. Would it make me feel better within myself to look 30 years younger than I
Probably
am?
not.
So I think that there's what do they call it? A dysphoria. It's almost like anorexics who look in the mirror and think they're fat.
Right.
So I'm not for it, but live and let live.
Yeah. Look,
You've got the money.
No, but I keep saying it. I don't think I'm in.
I think you're looking gorgeous for
I'm
73.
Thanks. 73. Huh?
Look, am I in the right decade?
So tell me about the awards. Did you go to the
Yes, I went to the watch.
show?
It's what was a watch party,
Oh, very good.
which is kind of the modern way of not having 400 people, drinking. And eating.
And you don't have to get dressed, and they don't have to cater, and you.
Well, there were little burgers and a couple of drinks. It was actually lovely. We had it at the SA South African Podcast Guild, SAPGG, at the SAPGG offices. And so must I talk about the awards?
Yeah, tell me.
The extrovert.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, guys,
go. No, tell me about the awards.
So there were a lot of categories for different kind of genres of communication.
Sure.
And I was actually finalist in 6 categories.
Wow.
Including cover art, which AI helped me with. So thank God I didn't get that. And then what they did. So these can you see? You're not allowed to look at my breasts, but you can.
No. What are those? Are those the awards?
Yes, they are, and we'll probably do better
so
next
that's
year.
what they look like.
So yeah, you'll get yours.
So what do you got there? You got a
So I've
gold?
got 3 golds and a silver.
Very nice.
So I think it was innovation and creativity. I won.
Congrats, that's excellent.
And then I got a silver in content, and then a gold in. I can't remember the category anymore.
Well, you got one of your golds was for story time.
Yeah, well,
that one podcast of the year. That's
yeah,
quite a
and
big
then
thing.
podcast of the
Oh,
year.
look,
So
James has printed us a very, very
James,
beautiful.
you're so cool.
I mean, that looks so great. It looks like an Excel
Okay.
spreadsheet,
Oh,
right?
right. Okay. So kids, parenting, and family, because it's a children's podcast. It's a podcast for very small children. So we got gold in that.
Oh, excellent.
And then in silver in production, and then gold in innovation and creativity, which was very special to me. And then I think what the judges did, the way they described it, was they took all the finalists in every category and then judged them. And so I was gobsmacked. So podcaster of the year.
Good.
Look at me.
Well, bloody done.
Thank you very much.
No, I think that's cool.
Grateful.
Also think it's cool that these guys have decided to go and establish a podcasting guild.
100%.
You know, it's growing into itself.
Yes, and I was told to do a show. Thank you to Paolo and the peeps who've actually done this, because as we were saying, it's a nascent industry, yet it's been around.
Yeah.
But in the same way that the Academy Awards work, or the Clio's work, or the Oscars, same thing, right?
It has to start somewhere.
Yeah, and
I
it
think
seems to be ground floor.
Yeah, I think it's good that you establish these things. It gives people a reason to aspire to being better at whatever they're doing. I've always thought if you're going to do a podcast, and these days, let's face it, they're also, everybody's a podcaster.
Everyone.
You bump into, kick over a rock, and a podcaster
Egg box
pops
and a
out.
microphone.
Yeah, exactly. So I say to them, look, unless you're doing something no one else is doing, or you're doing something better than anyone else is doing it, don't bother otherwise.
So you see, we said introvert. The introvert would say, no, that's really not true. I've really worked for years. And then the extrovert goes, guys, and in a way, I assume, because I've been in radios, since I came out the womb. And this is just another, it's another platform in which audio can actually shine. And I've always had kind of broadcast quality issues. It has to have, if there is a backtrack and there are chorus vocals and there's narrator, it's got to be
Yeah.
mixed properly.
Absolutely.
And in fact, while I was doing my audiobook, these little mouth noises that you can cover up with a jingle, and then my stomach would rumble and then we'd
Suddenly
have
you'd
to
hear
do the
them.
whole thing
Yeah.
again.
Mhm.
So the children's, basically the Solid Gold story time is for small children. I believe that children should be sung to and read to in the womb.
Oh, okay. I've heard this is almost accepted science
and
now,
so
right?
probably.
If you listen to classical music, your children, I don't know that anyone in my generation was raised by parents who actually did that on purpose. They may have done it by mistake.
Well, you see, my mother
But
told
now
me.
you've got mothers who walk around with Mozart playing. They hold the speaker right against their stomach, and
My mother, who lives in Arizona, from whom I got the genes, said to me, "It's such a pity there was no social media when I was 3, because I was apparently reciting, Beatrix Potter and singing Summertime out the womb." So in a sense, there was an essence.
it's a big
which is
performer
taken
gene in your family, huh?
Well, like I told you,
Yeah.
pulling us out of bed at midnight to perform for the visitors, following in father's footsteps, trained me well. But the whole idea of the heard word, because the heard word is a precursor to literacy and love of literature. 3-year-old can't read.
Okay, so let's talk about this for a second. And I know Monday morning people are waking up. They want to know what's happening in the world. We'll get to all that stuff in a minute. We've got some fun lined up for you later. I've got a couple of clips to show you and some other cool stuff. But while we're talking about books, because I had a chance this weekend to also sort out a couple of books. And,
in your introversion.
they gather in a
the
pile.
TBR file.
Yeah, and then I have to decide now, am I going to read any of these, or are they just going to go on the shelf, or should I give them to someone else? Those are the only options.
Audiobook.
I don't listen.
Don't you do them?
I do audiobooks. I know you're friends with Stephen Fry.
Well,
Friends.
acquaintance.
She's
very,
friends with
very
Stephen
close.
Fry.
He's my
The
very
last-
godfather, actually.
The last audiobook I actually listened to and loved it because he's got such a great voice.
Darling,
Apart from the fact that he writes beautifully,
he's amazing.
he actually narrated his own book Mythos.
Yes.
And then he's written Heroes
yes.
since
now
then.
he's done Odyssey.
Odyssey.
He's rewritten the Odyssey.
So basically, he is doing what the ancient Greek authors did with Greek mythology and retelling it to a new generation, which is magnificent. Anyway, that was the last audiobook I read. But while I was going through these books, I suddenly thought, are there that many people who I could give these books to who would actually read them? And this is a problem, right?
It's a big problem.
We've got a publishing industry in this country. We've got bookshops. Ostensibly, they sell more than cooking books. Well, even though if you walk into them, it's all cooking books.
Fiction doesn't.
It's all religious books and cooking books, right?
And celebrity memoirs.
And celebrity memoirs. And who wants one more of those?
Well, you did one, didn't you?
No, so I've written 2 books. The one was like little short observations and things. The other one was a semi-autobiographical story of kind of radio, then TV, then the internet.
How does it become semi?
Because I really didn't want to write it. So it gave me a semi.
I was just were you nursing a semi? I don't know if
and it was just, listen, I mean, I enjoyed doing it. They told me that both were bestsellers. I don't know what that means in this country.
1,000?
Is that all it is?
I think
1,000.
in fiction, 1,000 is unbelievable. I think 3,000 is a bestseller here, and then you get to platinum and gold. But I'm sure you sold more than 5,000 books. You surely
I think
know
we
this.
did, but it still made no money.
Oh no!
So if you're going to
don't
be
do it for the money.
Yeah, if you're going to be an author in South Africa, I wish you luck. I mean, everybody thinks they're going to be J.K. Rowling
or Damon Galgut.
Yeah, the chances are you're going to end up kind of having to.
If you're doing it for the money, don't do it.
Yeah, that's right.
You called from a different place. Do you think, be a copywriter?
So you said something just now about the magic of audio, and this is where radio and books come together. Is they exercise imagination.
100%.
And one of the things that I didn't like about having to go visual, and I still don't like it, because I would much rather have arrived in like shorts or tracksuit pants, or and not have worried about kind of
Did my hair
and all that sort of shit. Just to focus on the content itself, because everyone listening hears the same thing, but they see a different picture in their head.
Theater of the mind.
Absolutely,
it's always been.
And the same goes for a book. I mean, if you hadn't read Harry Potter, You wouldn't know this, but for everybody who read it before the movies came out, they had a picture in their
Absolutely.
own heads
Mm.
of what all of those things looked like, what
Mm.
the places looked like, what the people looked like. And I think that, like, there's a bit of sadness in me that I don't know that that's going to be as big a deal going forward, because now AI will do imagining for you, you know?
I can't.
Right?
Well, it's interesting because I've written for like booky books and I've written so much for radio. I think I write as if it's a radio play. In other words, it has to sound right, even if it's on the page.
There's a lot of description.
Not even no dialogue. I
Okay.
love me dialogue.
Okay.
And in fact, I was also told there's too much. I don't know what too much dialogue means, but if you get into a conversation, then you can hear the voices.
Right.
So even for the Storytime podcasts,
Yeah.
there's if a child, because maybe they need the visual images, but to hear it and then they hear it over and then they hear it over and then they can pronounce words and they can actually comprehend sentences as it grows, as a child grows. But it's actually my niece who has 2 little kids doesn't read at all. But as my dear fairy godfather Fry said, you know, he's at some point when people said, you know, the Nooks and all of those the platform of digital reading is going to kill books, and he said something to the effect of, "Darling, it's going to kill books the same way that elevators are going to kill staircases." So, in other words, it's another way of bringing your imagination or engaging with imagination. So let's not judge.
Yeah, I don't think that there's a war between audiobooks and books. As long as you are doing one or
Stimulated.
the other, it's good, right?
But you see, television also just feeds you. Audio, you have to engage in it. It's imagination.
Jittery Curser says, is the South African writing fraternity? There isn't such a thing. Concerned about AI. I know copywriters, transcribers, and translators who are struggling for jobs. I mean, you've been a copywriter.
It might be a
famously for years.
sorority rather than a fraternity. But
Yeah.
having written a novel, there are things like the Publishing Association of South Africa and places like that. But I've never
You guys
been
get
to,
together and sacrifice a cat.
Yes,
or...
sometimes not cats. You were nearly there. There
Children.
are pockets.
That's who you sacrifice as children.
Sometimes, but only lightly salted, you know, with a good Chianti. It's quite interesting because having
fava beans and a fine Chianti. Yes, Clarice, that is incidental.
Now he's going to quote the whole
Very
movie
good.
now.
Go on.
It's interesting. No, it's interesting. I chose not to have children. Okay, I'm like Silence of the Prams in actual
So you're not
fact.
barren or anything.
We don't consider ourselves barren, although my friend
No,
Will calls us the barren generation.
Do you remember Abraham's wife Sarah in the Bible? She was
90.
barren, right? She was barren.
I've still
It
got
was
a few
big
years
story.
to go.
and I joke with women who say to me, I've chosen not to have kids, because I've also chosen not to have kids. So I'm not sensitive about it. But some people are. You say to them, oh, so you're not barren. And they go,
No, but don't you like Silence of the Prams?
Yeah, that's very
that's
good.
kind of the way we've
I mean,
done
that's
it.
a nice, you know, you get home, there's no wailing, no responsibilities.
Other people's children are fantastic because they go home to their mummies afterwards.
Yeah.
Then the interesting part is, I don't want to put anyone off, is because somehow, and I'm going to do the middle-age thing again, going through menopause, which I think men go through as well.
Okay.
There was a kind of a phase where children's stories started pouring out of me.
Oh,
Not
nice.
particularly like I like them with fava beans, but not suddenly. It was like I reconnected with the little girl who danced on the table when I was 6. And my great-grandmother taught my mother songs, who taught us songs, who we taught to the children. So there's a kind of a very theatrical, musical,
I love this.
nursery rhymey thing.
This is a little bit...
So I found my inner child.
I think it's quite cool. I think actually very cool, very exciting, because David Walliams, the guy from Little Britain, right? He's just written this slew of children's books, and he's clearly very good at it. Maybe as a team who help him, I don't want to know how the sausage is made, but kids love these books. They absolutely love them.
And it's got humor and sarcasm.
Like, it reminds me of Roald Dahl when I was a kid.
But you see, the good books, the good children's books, are books for adults as well. So when I don't write for, I don't even know who I write for, because the rhymes come out and sometimes the songs come out with the rhymes, but there's always something for the adults. And as a child can grow, they go, oh, was that sarcasm, Mum? Was that irony?
Oh, they're starting to get it.
So in other words, for me, there needs to be a literary factor. In other words, the fiction or the writing has to have layers.
Right.
So that a kid, I mean, Alice in Wonderland, have you read it lately? It's a
Dark
mind
stuff going
blast.
on there.
Yeah, no, me and he, and in fact,
Lewis Carroll.
What I've also started doing is like the Owl and the Pussycat, which I wasn't allowed to do for YoTV because it had the word pussy in it.
Really?
I swear to God.
So when you say we're not allowed to do it for YoTV, just explain to people because you
Okay,
were...
so YoTV is a television program.
No, it was a famous kids program, but your involvement.
And well, I guessed it. And there are two puppets, so there are people under the table, and they're sarcastic. And I had my guitar and my makeup and everything, and I sang some story songs on there. But I wanted to do the Owl and the Pussycat because I've collaged it, which is something I do just for fun, like little pieces of paper. And I've made it has sung itself. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And am I allowed to use that? Isn't CS? It's Owl and the Pussycat went to see. His name will come to me. It's another middle-aged thing. But the point is that the lyrics were written 130 years ago, and I can.
Owl and the Pussycat is.
It's him.
It's not Kipling, is it?
No, and I can't believe that we were live on air, and I don't remember his name.
Don't worry.
It was going to, but the point is that it's actually an amazing little kind of magic realism piece, written 130 years ago, so it's out of copyright. And for the next season, I would like to introduce unborn children to something that was written nearly 2 centuries ago.
So this is why this woman's winning awards, by the way.
I have to look up who did the Owl and Pussycat.
Look it up quickly. So I'm just going to look at some of these comments. Carl says, Gareth, don't you always say that once someone has won, everyone else should just go home? Well done in your silver, loser. Yeah, well, this show got silver. I'm very proud the Shady podcast got gold. I can't tell you how happy it makes me when other people are winning. It really, especially when they're in the stable and people like Lynn that I know.
Edward Lear.
Very, very good stuff. Edward. Oh, okay. I wouldn't have got that right.
No. Can you call a friend?
Botulism toxin. What doesn't sound good about that, says Slippery Pickle. Yeah, that's probably true.
What does that even mean?
No, when we were talking about the facelifts and the Botox.
Oh, okay. Oh.
It's that's
what
it is Botox
botulism.
is.
Yeah, you're actually injecting poison.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like it's almost it doesn't do the same thing as formaldehyde, but it kind of freezes.
Yes, it freezes the muscles.
Yeah. Not great.
And in fact, the actresses that I see
when
now,
you did a half smile now, that was exactly.
No, it horrifies me. I'm horrified in the most fascinating. You know when you like pulled and pushed. But I would like to congratulate you as well on your awards. I did not see you there on Saturday night. You were obviously in your introvert mode.
I was not.
And just tell the viewers and the listeners what were the awards? In what categories were they?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
I have no
Neither
idea.
do I.
James, what did we win?
James.
Okay.
Society and
culture.
culture.
In other words, the Real Network got first and second in society and culture. Okay, I'm happy with that. Thank you.
Okay, we'll take the win.
Thank you. We'll take the win.
No, absolutely.
I like it. This is very good.
You see, the thing about awards also is, I mean, I said to you the last time, I only win things when I don't know there's a competition. And I actually won Best First Year Camper at Alan Isaac's camp in 1970 something. I didn't know there was an award. And so I've been trying for awards for the last, absolutely. So it was so unexpected. And that's taught me something, because if you want something too much.
Oh, yeah. Then it escapes you, right?
It's going to screw with you. So it was so surprising to me. I mean, here.
They're all four
there are
of them.
my trophies.
No, listen, can I tell you why it's important? Because I also am very jaded about awards and I don't take them terribly seriously. But I do think if people have gone to the trouble of voting for you, whether it's a public vote, which I always take a lot more seriously than if it's a bunch of judges. But if it's a public vote, people have actually WhatsApped or,
they've engaged,
gone online and joined the poll or whatever. I always like to say thank you, because they've taken the trouble to vote, so you can at least take the trouble to say thanks.
You could see it the other way, which is, I called all my friends and said, please vote for me. Or a bunch of judges actually knew.
I've never actually done.
You've never asked?
No, I've never even tried to persuade anyone to vote in an election.
Don't speak.
It's this week, huh?
It's tomorrow.
This is the big week. Yeah. Tomorrow is American Election Day. By the way, I just want to show you, like, the Daily Maverick has obviously completely lost its marbles because this is their cover of their print edition that like 3 people buy today. America KKKA on full display. I mean,
they're just winding us up.
Look, you could say it's clickbait or whatever else,
It's clickbait.
but I think this is just unbelievably lazy and just so disconnected from reality.
No,
Like,
but when they
guys,
put both of them on there, so we're not on either side.
KKK. American history is set to begin again.
Drags
it's
the whole world
This
with
is just unbelievable, right? And it's by Train Spot or something or another. Someone who goes by a pseudonym. This time it drags the whole world with it, as if that's not how every American election before has
it.
been.
Exactly. But
I remember Al Gore and George W. Bush.
the Chads.
Yeah, we were involved, whether
Chads.
we liked it or not, right?
But that was the Chads that led them to the
The
automatic.
first black president, Bill Clinton. Do you remember that? Remember? That was a big deal.
So my family, my mother married an American, and they've been there for
Yeah,
decades.
you said in Arizona.
Arizona, LA.
Arizona is one of
Maryland.
the swing states.
I
So
know.
your
But my
mom's vote
mom's
might
the
just
only, no,
count
she's the only Democrat in
At
the state.
90 years old.
But she told me when she phoned me to tell me how thrilled she was that we had won these awards because mom,
Sure, of course.
is-
Even at
I
90,
am
she's
mom-
proud of
oh,
her
yeah.
kid. Yeah.
Because we have a lot of doctors who emigrated kind of in the 60s and 70s and 80s. They wouldn't tell people to come live in America. In fact, my brother in LA has often said to me, "What's your plan B, Lynn? For when we're taken over."
What's like
and
when South Africa goes to shit.
when Julius comes and takes my home.
I love that when it's coming from people who's like, they've got to have a
I
plan
said to him,
B,
"What's your
yeah.
plan B, dude?
Yeah, exactly.
You're coming to live in my spare room."
But when either Donald or Kamala come to power, and they've told us that either of them are going to be the end of America, right? You speak to anyone who's a Democrat, they will tell you, "Oh my God, if Donald Trump wins,
Yeah, no, it's the end of
even
the
though he's
world.
been president already, if he wins, it's just everything, the flames, the Nazi rallies at Madison Square Gardens."
But don't you think that in a
Shit
way,
show.
if
and the converse, obviously is true. The Republicans will say to you, "Well, I'll tell you, if Kamala wins, you kiss this country goodbye.
know,
We're
honey.
going down the toilet."
but don't you think, because we were talking about Obama coming in 08, was it? Which
Yeah.
seems like a million years ago.
2008.
And you go 15 years later, where every single person actually has a voice. Don't you think that
And
the whole
fucking
social
Obama's
media?
still out there campaigning.
Fucking Obama.
Can't he just
My
can't he
president.
take a break? Come on, dude. I mean, every other president knows, even George W. Bush, who had the brain of a squirrel, we're told, even he knew, good idea to just go to your ranch
I think
and
there's
go
a
and
desperation.
ride horses and things.
Mm.
There's a desperation. That's the problem, right? Is that these Democrats are like, they're nervous as hell.
We are.
You are. No, I know you're.
No,
a Dem-
I know.
I
we
know.
said we would not speak of the war, but yes.
No, but I mean, politically, I always, it's interesting to know. And I know you're on the left. I know you've always
I
been.
can't help it. It's so interesting about, what do they call it? When confirmation bias.
Yeah.
So if I hate Trump, everything he says I have to hate, and
Yeah,
then he
exactly.
says something that I kind of sort of agree with. Like, I can't do that.
No.
I can't say
No,
that.
God forbid.
No.
No.
Melania's not pretty.
Did you hear the thing that he said last week, which was also just taken completely out of context? I mean, right now,
Garbage truck. For
right now,
example.
both sides are, and I hate the
yeah.
both sides thing, but it's true.
Mm.
Both sides are absolutely maximizing whatever is being said,
Absolutely.
and just they're not even slanting or tilting it; they're turning it upside down wherever they can. So he said something innocuous like, "I'm going to protect women," from
whether they like it or not.
whether they like it or not.
Uh-huh.
And then you had a
I'm
bunch
done.
of like feminists
But I'm
screaming.
done.
They're like, "I don't want you to look after me,
I'm done with it
Donald
too.
Trump."
I'm done.
And then Kamala said, or Joe Biden, obviously, with the garbage
Which I
thing, that's
tried
also
to say,
gone crazy. I mean,
that was a real
everything's
faux
been
pas.
turned into a big story, even if it's nothing.
Or a show.
A show. It's a
Did
show.
you see the
a big
garbage
show.
truck?
Yeah, of
I
course.
mean, you see, and I saw the garbage
Brilliant
truck.
marketing, right?
Completely.
Genius marketing.
Guerrilla marketing.
So clever. Tactical
But
activation.
he really does need help with his makeup.
Oh my God, yeah. Somebody's got to sit down and just tell him, like, you got to have Donald, and I'm no expert.
He's
in this
got no
field,
gay
but
friends.
the white eyes, like the raccoon eyes,
You know,
and then the orange,
He
right?
doesn't have any gay friends
So,
because someone would have told him.
If he's watching, I don't think he is.
Don,
What would you tell him? Blend.
you see, I'm not. In fact, it's quite interesting because I don't wear a lot of makeup.
Yeah, I
My
know.
makeup is. And in fact, I say to my husband, do I look like Donald Trump? Because if you don't have, you went one stage makeup, you have to blend. And when you've got light hair and light skin.
No, I look like a vampire if I don't.
I would say Donald blend. And I would say, you see, I also the hair. So
your orange glasses are not a dog whistle of support
I
to
do have
Donald
blue
Trump.
as well. I do have blue cat's eyes, but I lost them because I can't see without my glasses to find them.
But you know what? What's so funny is that Wednesday will roll around, whoever's won, and they'll probably still be counting for another week because there's going to be this one. You know, like our elections, you know, the next day who the winning party is. You know who's won.
Because of the
Don't swallow the smoke.
No, I'm not.
She's vaping. It's okay. She's allowed
vaping,
to vape.
I don't, and it's
not an airplane.
Vape.
You're allowed.
No, but it's not a hash vape. I would never have come on here with a.
But you have. I mean, you're famously a weed smoker.
I was.
Yeah.
Am I?
Well, I don't know. You told me earlier.
No, in fact, I in fact on Friday night, my goddaughter lent me her Heeb vape.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't know what the dose was because we just like smoke, and I was out of my mind.
Really? Stronger than what you used to?
Because you're puffing it like a vape, so it's like. You're kind of hyperdosing. What do they call it? Microdosing, hyperdosing.
Yeah, hyperdosing.
But I can go buy it in the shops now. So is it legal? In fact, it's quite an interesting thing because they say write drunk, edit sober, which is a very interesting, creative way. So your imagination and do whatever you want.
Can you write drunk?
Not drunk, but a little wake and bake. I
used to. So I used to write a column every week, even if it was just for my website. A lot of times it was for someone else.
That's PT.
And sometimes I'd just experiment. Like I'd try and write drunk, and I'd try and write sober. I never did any like hallucinogens or anything because I don't think I could write.
I know.
I think the words would just go like all over the place. But I don't think my drunk ones were that different, actually.
What this is a very open audience, right?
Go ahead.
If with a tiny little wake and bake, and I'm going to be arrested now. And never
you won't be
arrested.
That stuff's legal now.
In other words, so say for example, you meditate because I did yoga for many years until the yogi became a rapist, and I just don't breathe out anymore.
Your yogi became a rapist.
The Kundalini yoga dude, and I would put that out there. Yogi Bhajan.
You mean the guy who started the movement?
The guy who started the movement who then died.
I thought your actual yogi here.
No, they
was
were
a rapist.
Women.
That would be bad.
No, that would be, but then it's kind of like the same thing.
Okay, but the Kundalini guy, what was his
Yogi
name?
Bhajan was his name. He was a customs inspector. He took the whole West Coast by storm, but he
became such a big thing.
He was not seducing. He was raping his little girls. Touch the part you fear the most.
What a dreadful man.
And so having been so...
It's a cult, right?
Well, you see...
isn't that definition cult?
Absolutely. Yeah. But I didn't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. They're Sikhs.
Right.
Okay.
So they were the
and
turbans.
I liked the meditation and I liked the movement. And then I found out you had to sort of take a picture of the guru and then meditate on him. And I didn't like that. So I thought I'll take what I need. But when this all happened, I was so horrified that I'd been so close to the cult. But why I'm saying that is I would get up 4:30, brush tongue with brush your tongue, take a bandage and swallow it and pull it. I didn't do all of that.
Oh,
but there's a whole lot of
ritual.
Cleansing, drink your urine.
Jesus.
I didn't do that. But
drink your urine.
There are those.
Wow.
I'm not necessarily. I've never tried it. But why I'm
so
saying that is,
if
I go into another, if I did my meditation and then went to the desk, it's almost a similar but different sense of awake and bake because I'm now in the zone. If you like. So I would use the meditation and the flex and the discipline to get to the writing.
This is important because I often get into discussions with people. We find out, for example, that our favorite singer is not such a nice guy when the cameras go off.
Oh yeah.
And I've never disliked a Michael Jackson song just because people said he was a pedophile. Yeah, I still listen to it, and I can differentiate between the talent as expressed in the music, which puts me at more than an arm's length away from anything that he did, and the person himself, who I never got to meet.
But look at Picasso.
So why did you get upset about the Kundalini dude? And I mean,
so my father died on Valentine's Day in 2020, and this report, it was called the Olive Branch Report, came out at exactly the same time. So because I'm allowed to...
You can say whatever you want.
And I had been teaching the girls who worked for me, my staff who were mainly young Black women.
Yeah.
I'd been doing yoga every single Thursday. You were there at 8 o'clock. If you're not there, you're
So
locked
you'd
out
been
of the
a bit
room.
of
Oh,
a
in my whites,
tyrant
it was,
about it.
totally.
Okay.
But when the whole report came out, one of my girls said to me, "Oh, no wonder he was putting us in positions where he could see our pussy." So because I'm not going to do a yoga move for you now, but if you actually want to know a
Wow.
lotus pose.
Okay.
So then I began to kind of rear engineer what was really going on.
This guy is just a pervert.
And then, well, a pervert who was celibate, who then raped his women, who was pure, and then showed them pornography. I mean, I'll show you the report was, and of course,
He was a predator.
yes,
Yeah.
he was a predator who then brought people in to protect him, and the people who protected him, he violated.
Don't you love that line from Shakespeare's King Lear? That the policeman who wants to arrest the whore has a burning desire to use her.
100%.
So it's this idea that
Back to
people,
Donald.
well, it's this interesting idea that people who are most who want to be seen to be the best people, the most moral, the most ethical, the most decent, the most upstanding, the kind of respectable people who should lead,
But that's
the
why
community. Those are always the creepy ones underneath.
But
There's
look at the
something going
Catholic
on.
Church.
Yeah,
Look at
Yes,
all of these
exactly.
secrets, men in dresses, which is kind of
Right.
how I see them
Yeah,
with beards.
aging men in dresses. And we know, like, I saw a headline the other day that apparently sex at the Vatican is just
Everywhere.
through the roof at the moment. They can't. It's turned into just an orgy.
Yeah, look at the Medicis.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for hundreds of years.
Right.
The very fact that Catholic priests are not all, but that celibate Catholic priests violate little boys blows my mind. And yet, of course, you're going to be celibate, you're going to be this, you're going to be
Sure.
that, but actually here comes...
Thou dost protest too much is the other
But
famous
back
line.
to your point about... So Michael, I don't know whether Michael Jackson did little kids. I think that his childhood was traumatic. I think that he
Sure,
might
it
have...
sounds like he had a shit time.
But listen to Thriller again. I remember when Thriller came
What a
out.
great
I remember,
album.
wow.
Right?
And took the credit for that? Quincy, which he probably did because... Do you remember Off the Wall?
Yeah.
I
course.
actually heard an interview. He said, "I did that hook. That album would have done nothing without my production." And back to podcasting again. And have you watched the We Are the World documentary?
No, but I remember that song.
Michael was seminal. It wasn't a very good song, actually.
No, but do you know what I did listen to over the weekend? It came up in my playlist that I was listening to on Saturday night. Was Somebody's Watching Me, which is Rockwell, which was Quincy's son. And he basically strong-armed Michael into singing, "I always feel like somebody's watching me," right? Because
he owed his dad.
Because Michael would have made the song a hit. There's no way Quincy's son would have been able to do that without the Michael
That's
vocal.
the schmooze.
But poor Michael. Yeah, the guy was definitely victimized. I remember stories about his dad telling all of them, "Right, you boys, pick up those bricks on that side of the yard, and you're going to move them over to that side of the yard." And they'd go, "What are we doing for, Dad?"
Why, Daddy? Why, Daddy?
And he'd go, "Just because I told you to."
That's like the
now,
army.
don't you give me no words. I'll beat you with a switch.
That's the army.
It was like that.
Go pick
right?
that leaf off that
Stupid,
tree.
right? Just
But do
stupid.
you
The
know
poor
that-
kid. He was like 4 or 5 when he started being paraded like you, forced out of bed to entertain the people.
But I'm going to tell you, Michael. So my sister was 2.5 years younger than me, and we lived in Scotland and England. And my sister discovered the Jackson 5. We both did, but I'll give her the credit.
Okay.
And so she had all these little black boys on her wall. Now, remember, we were ex-South Africans.
Yeah.
We didn't know there was any sort of thing as prejudice. My sister was
Who was
dark.
your favorite?
Oh, Michael. Always.
Michael.
But I could
Which
get
one was the
Michael,
one who
Marlon.
didn't Jermaine die the other day?
Yes, he did.
Jermaine, yeah.
Marlon. I knew them all.
Tito,
And T-Rex.
Jackie.
And Mark Bolan. And when we
Oh,
came
Mark
here in
Bolan.
the early 70s, it was like,
bum, bum,
Get
bum,
it
bum,
on,
bum, bum,
bang
bum,
it gone,
Right,
get
that's
it
the
on.
one.
And Top of the Pops and Jimmy Savile.
Okay.
I mean, that's where I grew up. So, and George Michael Eichel, one of the best songwriters. Look what he did with Wham. I mean, I'm surprised he survived that at all.
Yeah, that's true.
Back.
Okay, but the point
Anyway.
is that because they went through all of that doesn't make it right that they were weird and potentially, we're going to say for Michael, because we never really
No, we
will
never
know,
knew.
potentially doing disgusting, criminal, or inappropriate things. I can still separate the music out and love the music without having to be upset that the person was a shit.
Do you listen to R.
Right?
Kelly still?
Of course, I listen to R. Kelly sometimes, not as often as I used to when
See, I'm not crazy
was a thing.
for that.
But I
music.
don't like R. Kelly. You see, if just because an R. Kelly song comes up, doesn't mean that I'm a massive fan of his lifestyle. You know,
No, but
same
that's-
goes for
can you
Diddy.
separate the-
I mean, look at the Diddy thing, right? I mean,
Diddy and now J-Lo's involved. I'm
J-Lo. Did you see her crying
no, I
to
didn't.
try and get votes for Kamala? She's like, "Oh my God, you got to vote for Kamala because otherwise she's going to they're going to take away our
reproductive rights. You see,
abort our children. If I don't want to have grandchildren, that's up to me, and
I
it
knew
shouldn't
you'd
be up
bring
to
this
the
up.
government." And she was crying, and I'm like, "Yeah, we're going to trust your judgment."
Okay, yeah,
'cause
now
you
I'm
were
going to vote for Kamala because you.
Diddy's girlfriend.
But you see, but that's the industry. So you must have been tempted by drugs and women. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, in fact, the Justin Bieber thing freaks me out about more than anything because they took him in as a teenager and then of all the fake media.
So what bothers me, it's like I never like the idea of duress. I never like the idea that someone's being forced to do something because I'm a rebel for no reason most of the time. So if you
Supposed to
tell
grow
me
up.
you must do this, then I don't want to do it.
It's called dafka in our
that's
culture.
it. Dafka.
I will not because you
Right.
told me to.
Right.
My
In
whole
Yiddish, dafka.
Whole
So
life.
if you tell me I mustn't do this, that's all I want to do.
Me too.
Right. And
I know.
I think that there are
Or you can't.
so as a result, when people try to force other people to do things, I'm out. And
Insane.
I think there's something so wrong with duress, whether it's certainly underage people, certainly women who are not in a position to argue about things. Like there's power play.
Like that
going on,
French woman who
violence
was,
or-
you know, the French woman who had the husband get 75 men to strip her while she was unconscious.
Oh, Jesus, I didn't know that.
No,
You've
it's-
ruined my morning.
No, it's
That was a thing?
Pellicott. It's still on. She was drugged to unconsciousness and the husband had a deep fake
Jesus.
account and men would come to her house and rape her in her sleep. And she's come out to say, she's about 71, 72 now.
Wow.
And then you've got to look at the French psyche because the French aren't so fussed about pederasty as we are. You know,
or about consent generally, right?
Well, I've never been seduced by a friend. In fact, when I was traveling with my friend Merle,
Oh, we got Dr. Hanan.
the blondes were.
Let's not
were
waste
on.
his time. Listen, we went to him so late last time that I'm going to get into trouble
Okay,
if we
no,
don't get him on now.
I'll
So,
just go
Doc,
vape outside.
thanks for the lunch on Saturday. I told everyone I was cured, and some people actually thought like I had a problem. They didn't know I was joking. So someone sent me a message afterwards and said like, "Oh my God, cured of what?" I was like, "All my
Arrogance?
mental health issues, all of them." So thanks for lunch on Saturday.
No, that was great fun. No, you got the seal of approval. You are mentally healed.
All right, so let's look at this quickly. When you look at your family tree, what kind of patterns do you see? Generational patterns of addiction, suicide, violence, and/or hospitalizations are important for a therapist to be aware of. So this doesn't come from an email or anything, but I think it's worth reflecting on this stuff because you could inherit certain things. You might inherit other things. There might be problems that come from the genes. How much of that plays into someone's overall mental health? Because you often hear people say, "Oh no, I'm like this because my mom and my gran and my aunt and they're all like this." Is that a thing?
Yeah, well, as you know, the approach is not to look navel gaze and blame and play victim. The approach is actually what I do and what can I do to make my life better.
Mm-hmm.
As therapists, we are looking at patterns. We are looking at temperaments. You know, there's certain things that limit your ability to move from point A to point B. There's certain restrictions, whether it's physical restrictions, medical restrictions, psychiatric, mental restrictions that stop you from getting from point A to point B. But we're looking at patterns. We're looking at the way that you've modeled your world. Because I always tell parents, it doesn't matter how young your kids are, they are always observing and they are always recording what you're doing, and naturally kids copy and paste. They see how the world works through you, and they go and find a way to repattern that and find a way to replicate that. And they repeat what they see. So we are looking at patterns. We are looking at how you grew up. We are looking at, the way your parents interacted, and never mind your genetic limitations, let's call it, but your psychological patterning of the way you saw the world and how you're engaging the world looking forward.
So, I mean, I've heard these stories, and they've done research on twins. That, I mean, people used to be so cruel, and used to take a set of twins, separate them, have one family raise the one twin, another family raise the other twin, and then compare them later to see how much of it was nurture and how much of it was nature. And this is something that they thought, oh no, it's not a problem. We'll just take these children and ruin their lives. And they did discover that actually the nurture part is probably much more important when it comes to behavior. Would you stand by that, Doc? I mean, is that something that you've picked up in the research?
Definitely, 100%. So what happens is our genetic makeup influences our temperaments, the energy that we put onto the world. Some people are like the Duracell bunny, other people are much more placid. So the way you engage with the world, and certainly your medical makeup, is made up from largely genetics. But how you engage the world, that is going to do with nurture. That is going to do with what you've learned, what you've observed, what you've experienced. Parents have a lot more to add to their kids' lives in terms of patterning than the genetic disposition. So it's not like your child is born and boom, that's, their future is predetermined by their genetics. And I'm talking about their mental health. Their mental health is largely dictated by what they've seen, what they've observed, what they've experienced. And interestingly, people don't know this, but the brain consumes 20% of the energy that you expel in the day. And the brain's function is really to keep your body in a state of a resource so you can deal with whatever obstacle comes along. So it's there to conserve energy. And there's certain things that put you at a metabolic surplus, and there's certain things that put you at a metabolic expense. So we discussed the coin theory many times. So your brain really wants to conserve as many coins as it possibly can. That's where your brain really likes to stay in its comfort zone. Your brain really wants to stay at home and eat chips and watch TV and Netflix because it doesn't require much energy. And your brain doesn't like to expel energy going to the gym and doing things outside of your comfort zone. And one thing that is metabolically very expensive is remodeling or relearning your model of the world. So what ends up happening, Gareth, is that we are born into this world and our parents show us how the world works. They model our world for us. We wear these goggles that tell us what we can, what we should, what we're allowed to do, what the restrictions are. It models the world for us. And the moment we develop the model, the brain really wants to stick to that model at all costs. It will reject anything that rejects that model, and it will accept anything that confirms that model. So parents have a massive responsibility to develop a model for their kids, because their kids are likely to pursue and continue and build on that model as opposed to change it down the line, regardless of whether that model is healthy or unhealthy.
You agree with that? I hear you nodding along there.
What you've brought out in me, so I was raised in this in very strange, dramatic home. And when we came to South Africa in my early teens, I was kind of given to the grandparents as such. I had a second set of parents, very mythical. And they were straight-laced, down the line, discipline, notes on my pillow, about cleaning my room. And if I look back on it, in a sense, I was reprogrammed to a degree.
Exactly.
The genetics all came from mom and dad, but Granny and Papa made me what I am today because I learned things like compassion. I learned things like consideration for others. I learned things like my cultural history because I lived amongst them. So is it, and yet I can default to my insanity at the drop of a hat.
Yes, you can.
What do you think that it's possible to reprogram the second set of parents idea?
Well, what happens is we're born into this world, let's call it a blank slate. We don't have an inkling or give any value to really anything dangerous or safe. So that's why We can put a snake next to a baby or a lion next to a baby, and the baby doesn't react because it doesn't have any beliefs or any modeling of what a lion or a snake is. So we develop our modeling, our goggles, the way we see the world through life experiences. That's how the programming begins. And interestingly, your brain will resist changing the programming at all costs. Even if the new programming could be better and set you off for a better life, your brain doesn't care. That's why I always say we don't create what we want, we repeat what we know, because it's very metabolically expensive to change your model of the world. But now people come to therapy and they go, well, how do I change my model of the world? Because my current model is not working. The way I'm conducting myself, my behaviors, my habits, my instincts are just not working for me. I'm not able to get what I want. I keep on repeating what is familiar to me. And the only way to reprogram the goggles, the program, the model of the world is through the opposite life experience, not through logic, not through me telling you, not through you saying it to yourself in the mirror every morning, because that your brain doesn't hold as fact. What your brain really wants is to reprogram itself through the experience. And the aim of my therapy or therapy in general is to immerse somebody in a brand new experience where the brain has to develop a brand new model. The beautiful thing about experience is that it's so powerful that whether you want to believe it or don't want to believe it, you're going to believe it. In other words, it's outside of your willpower, it's outside of what you want. So we are able to reprogram your brain even outside of your conscious awareness or willingness to do so.
Okay, because I've always called myself an experience junkie.
Yeah.
I have to try it on to know whether it works or whether it doesn't. But with the grandparents, I became a hell of a rebel. You know, they would take my kaftan out and use it for rags. I take it back, sew it up. Granny wanted me to, twin set and pearls, don't laugh too much. So in fact, it was something to rebel against. There was grist to the mill, if you would call it that. But the experiences are also choices based on the nurture-nature thing.
Yeah, I'm also fascinated by something that Lynn brought up now, that she learned to be more compassionate from her grandparents. Now, do you think that these are things that need to be taught, that people aren't just good? Because this goes to human nature, right, Doc? And it's an ongoing conversation I have with so many people I know. Are humans inherently good, or are we inherently bad? Or is that just such a stupid and simplistic way to see things? Because you have to be taught to care, to be considerate.
So you have to be shown.
Yeah, you have to learn these things. They're not things that are there from the beginning.
No, but Doc, you know better. But the actual example, the example that they set for me was something that I could absorb and then rebel against or rebel towards.
Sure.
But loving an unlovable woman, my grandmother would not be told, I love you. She just wouldn't have it. So towards the end, I would just climb into bed and sing her love songs. Wow. And I learned to love the unlovable. Maybe it was sort of payback for rescuing me. But I mean, what is your take on this?
Good or bad humans?
So, I always say that the universe is the great equalizer. When we are born into this world, the universe, the world will teach us certain things. So, for example, if my mom and dad teach me to be unkind, well, whatever that means, I'll get out into the world and I'll start playing with other kids, and the kids will naturally reject me. So what ends up happening through play, through engagement with the real world, is that the real world will actually teach me this is appropriate and this is not appropriate. Right. This does work and this doesn't work. This will get you accepted and this will get you rejected. And you can bash your head only enough times against the wall until you learn that I've got to play differently. And once we learn how to play, then we actually become accepted in the group, in the design group or the predetermined group that we actually want to engage with. So the world will teach us. So it's not just mom and dad, which is our primary caregivers, and actually they're the most important. The first port of call in terms of setting up our model, but the world will do so as well. And when you learn to engage with other kids, they will teach you this is kind, and kindness will get you to play the game. Unkindness will get you rejected.
Can you connect the play of children to, in a sense, the play we were talking earlier about creativity, imagination, the ability to kind of have a sense of self, if you would call it that, which comes out of play, but then becomes almost private play. So, for example, if you're lured towards being a dancer or a writer or an actor or the creative process in the adult, do you think that is part of the thread that you pull out from child's play when you were doing it
Definitely.
when you were a kid?
No question. Actually, the ability and the learning how to play with other kids and being comfortable in a group and knowing that I'm accepted the way that I am, and it's a back and forth. We're playing tennis, so I serve you, you serve me, I give you coins, you give me coins back, will actually give you permission to do exactly the same with yourself. People that actually, we know from research, that have bad playing habits with others have terrible bad playing habits with themselves. They don't like to play with themselves. They actually don't play with themselves well. They don't like themselves. They look in the mirror and don't approve of who they are. But people who can play with others can play with themselves much better.
Not on air.
Yeah, not playing with yourself, as in, we're not talking about masturbation here, Doc. Let's just be clear.
Hands
All right?
above the
We got to
table.
be clear.
All right, we've got to be clear. I saw a comment from Pat, from Pat just now. Pat said she's raised 2 kids. My late parents brought us 3 siblings, taught us to be kind, considerate, and compassionate, which we've instilled into our 2 adult married kids. Well, I've met your children, and they are not those things. Pat, you failed. I'm kidding. I don't know who Pat is. It was just
Don't
fun.
call us, we'll
Right
call
now,
you.
right now, she just went, what? Immediately, she lost all her compassion and kindness just for a second there. All right, listen, Doc, thank you very much. We'll check in with
guys.
you next week. And
See you then.
I promise you we won't be late. Thank you. Dr.
Okay, guys.
Hanan Bushkin, very, very good.
Thank you.
Had a nice lunch with him. And listen,
Beautiful.
thanks for coming in
Thank you
this
for
morning.
the time.
We've
and the
really
space.
bounced all over the place, but congrats on the
Beautiful.
awards.
Thank you very much.
That's a very, very big deal. And obviously your Storytime Award, 3 different awards for just
4.
that. 4 for that podcast.
And in fact, I won the podcast award for the children's category in the African Podcast and Voice Awards, which is a Pan-African. So it's actually the best children's story in Africa.
Absolutely brilliant. No, I love it.
Can I shout
Good.
out to Solid Gold Podcast who took me into the family,
Absolutely.
and I'm the
Yeah.
prodigal daughter returning from all of my sound experience
Yeah.
into this. And thank you,
wonderful.
Mr. Introvert. I'd like to spend Saturday night with you sometime.
Don't get too cheap. All right,
Give me a
thank you.
Fitbit. Thank you.
Thank you, Lyn Jaffe.
you.
Very, very good. Lyn Jaffe, our guest for the first hour of this morning. Got lots of cool stuff on the way. James is going to update us on sport because we haven't done that yet. And there's plenty more still to come. Don't go anywhere. It's just after 7.
I'm going to tell you guys a story about a patient of mine. This guy happens to be an IV drug user. Right? He uses heroin. And this guy came prepared, a shoelace in his bag as a tourniquet that he would use as a tourniquet to get his veins, right? And I was failing. I just could not get a vein. This guy was like, nah, let me show you. Pulls this
That's
thing
what they
out.
always, that's
Let
what
me
they always
show
do.
you. He pulls this thing out, went tight, like I've never seen an arm go that tight. His arm was swelling up. Managed to find one vein. I want you to look. These veins here. Visiting hours come. It's 3 p.m. This guy says, Doc, I just want to go outside to smoke. Does he not go outside with his friend who came to visit him, who he said was his brother?
To inject.
Brought him heroin to the hospital.
Hey, bruh.
Shoots up in the same drip that I put in for him. Comes back to the ward high.
Oh, my
Out of
sack.
his mind.
He's like, I
High.
got the drip, I'm ready. Yeah.
I'm ready.
Now, what do you guys know about NASCAR?
It goes round and round in circles.
Correct. That's
Yeah.
pretty much the first
Indy
rule of
500,
NASCAR.
and if you don't chew big red, then
So NASCAR literally is it's oval circuits.
I think that's the main thing. Is like, let's just go show. So
Yeah.
see how many Bud Lights we can drink before we drive home,
Yeah.
and then go to church on Sunday.
Sometimes consistency is the best play, huh?
are live. Good morning. It is Monday, and we've got a whole week ahead of us in the month of November. It was boiling hot yesterday. We don't talk about the weather, but it's worth reflecting on. Summer is properly here. If you're wondering what this is, I'm just playing with this goddamn fidget cube, and now that I've started, I can't stop. It's going to be a thing. Just ignore it. I'll ignore it. We'll carry on. Nothing changes. All right. Okay, so I found this clip very, very interesting. This is obviously a cabinet meeting or something where the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, is there. And somebody put this up on Instagram or somewhere, probably started on TikTok. But it's with Sputla Ramakgopa, who's the Minister of Electricity or whatever. They noticed that this is how someone laughs when they are trying to impress the big man, right? No one laughs like this because it's genuinely funny. Nothing is as funny as the way this guy laughs. Look at this and tell me if you agree. And look at everyone else, all right? Just look at all the other people. They're not laughing as much. He's like, ah, ha, 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 ha. Guy needs the job, hey? That's what people are saying. And what was the caption there? How kasi gents laugh when the groot man, the big man, is there. That's what's going on there. Look at him. Trying so hard. And look at everyone else is like, what the calm down, dude. Right? They're all like, calm down. Why do you need to be so enthusiastic? Thought that was a bit odd. All right. Then this is interesting. It relates to Dr. Hanan. It relates to Lynn, our previous guest. How do people spend their time these days? So I put this out on social media over the weekend. It got a huge reaction from people. Lots of people saying, where do I find the original file? I don't know. I mean, I just literally screen grabbed it. But I think it's fascinating, and it takes you through from about the 1930s until now. Where do people spend their time? And the idea here is that if you're spending all of your time online, are you really surprised that you're not happy? If you're spending all of your time with co-workers, and watch how that one's changed too. And then family, friends. There are all kinds of categories here that are worth looking at. But you watch the video and then we can discuss. Take a look at this. How's that, huh? That comes online. Watch this. There it is. So I don't know why it was necessary to include all that horrible music, but you get the idea. Like, online is now close to 90 or more % of what people spend their time doing. I think that's probably why we've got so many unhappy people in the world, because, as you know, I've discussed this a million times on the show, it's the best time to be alive. We've got all the modern conveniences, access to every bit of information. You can meet people that you would never have met ever before because you don't even have to leave the comfort of your home. Obviously, that's online. But people are still unhappy. People are still miserable. They're like, oh, I don't have this. I don't have that. My relationship's bad. My health is poor. All of these things that I can find that I can complain about. But actually, it could just be what you're spending your time on. It might not be chemicals in your head. It might not be other people's fault, the government. People will find anything to blame except themselves. If you are spending 90% of your time online, big problems. I spent so little time online this weekend that I don't think I even have my phone around me for most of the time. I want to look. You get those screen time reports. How do you find that, James? Oh, here it is. Got it. Don't worry. Okay, so the whole weekend, I'm fucking proud of this. The whole weekend, 2 hours and 16 minutes. That is easily the lowest for me. I'm not always like, it's way, way more than that. If I look at the whole week, yeah, I mean, I'm so proud of this. 2 hours, 16 minutes for the whole weekend. Most weekends, it's way, way more than that. So I reckon that's why I'm happy this morning. You're not sitting watching the screen the whole time. Look at your numbers. Tell me if they're far more or far less than that. Go to the comments section. I see a couple of things here. My brother shared the same thing with me, but his one said that it shows how people meet each other in modern time with finding relationships. I've seen that one too. I don't know who does these graphs, but they're brilliant. It's really fascinating to me that we are able to, over a period of almost like 100 years there, that watch how people's behavior changed. Did you see, out of interest, how much time people spent in bars and, what was it? Bars and clubs? Restaurants and bars, whatever. And how that changed as well. Co-workers and then neighbors. That was fascinating too. Like, neighbors used to be a big part of what people spent their time doing, right? Because those are the people closest to you. Now it's like, most people don't even know who their neighbors are, including me. I spend 3 hours a day in a bus, but then I get to YouTube so I could read a book, says Sugar Chabalala. Well, I mean, I'm not saying all online time is bad. I, for example, spent a lot of this weekend listening to podcasts. It doesn't mean that I was looking at my phone, or listening to music that was coming from my phone, but I wasn't like on the phone, if you know what I mean. Obviously, YouTube can be amazing. You can learn a new skill. You could learn how to do something that you haven't done before. So I'm not saying it's all bad. This is just an interpretation based on the evidence. Try listening on the app, the worst echo ever. What's going on there, guys? Oy, oy, oy. Okay, sorry. So thank you for letting us know, Oryx. Judas, hang on a second. We've got that clip of the electricity minister was funny, Gareth. It made my morning, says Surviving Life. We all know people like that, right? People who are so desperate to impress the big man or the person in charge, the woman in charge, could be anyone, that they will embarrass themselves in front of everyone else. It's always like the person who needs that job the most, who actually doesn't know why they're in it. And I'm not saying Sputla Ramagopa is the worst minister. That's a kind of photo finish between about 20 of them. But it's embarrassing. I mean, I'm sure anyone looking at that can see, like, the guy's, he's desperate, right? It's like, please don't fire me. I'll laugh at all your jokes, Your Majesty. Unbelievable. We call that a brown noser, says Bitcoin But. Well, speaking of that, this is a very, very funny graph. And again, I don't know who compiles these things. James, I'm going to send this to you. You don't have to put it on immediately, but this is hilarious because this also came up in my feed the other day. And I thought, like, who's measuring that? It's about the average number of bowel movements per week in European countries. No, really. Which countries do you think in Europe have the most bowel movements in a week? And you'd be surprised at how much variation there actually is. We'll put that up once we've got that one ready. Saw that yesterday. Never seen a more sycophantic laugh in my life, says Carl. If the other ANC people are shooketh. Yeah, the other ANC people were shooketh. Legit didn't even know there was still a CC app. Is there? We do have an app. We've just started redoing the app for the Real Network, and it's just taken forever with the App Store and all the rest of it. But we'll update you on that as soon as we've got something to tell you. Bitcoin But says that the country with the most bowel movements would be Germany, all the beer. Listen, someone has measured this. Someone has gone out there and they've done a doctoral thesis on it. Or look at this. Average number of bowel movements per week. Okay. Now, you immediately look at Russia because it's the biggest, and you say 29 bowel movements in a week. That's a lot. That's more than twice a day. But look at Italy, 55. 55. I'm sorry. That seems like a lot. And then there are countries with as little as 7. Ireland, only 2. 2 a week. So what's meant to be healthy? That's the question. Like, isn't 1 a day healthy? In which case it would be 7. That would be in the range of Finland. What have we got? Ukraine. You know, those are the countries that seem to me to be healthy. Even Romania at 8. It's a little more. But my God, 45 in France, 46 in Germany, 48 in Spain, and 55 in Italy. 55 bowel movements a week is 5 a day almost, more. What the fuck are they doing? I've eaten Italian food. That doesn't make you shit yourself 4 times a day. The hell are they doing? No, I mean, this is not the kind of thing that you search for. This is the sort of thing that comes up on your feed and you go like, what? So I needed to share it with you. Spoil your day. James, can we give us some sport? Let's see what's happening in the world of sport, because I didn't pay any attention to that. And it doesn't sound like it was the most exciting weekend either, because I didn't see that much going on. Was there anything going on?
There was quite a lot of sport this week.
Really?
Yeah.
Like what?
Like Formula One, there was Premier League action,
Okay.
there was some rugby.
Really?
It was quite a weekend, yeah.
Okay, well, enlighten me.
I will,
I know nothing.
because I know you care
Yeah,
so
I'm
much.
massively motivated by sports. So I'll just sit here and go, go.
What I can tell you is I'm sitting here for another week. My team on top of the log
By the way,
have won a game.
who did I see wearing a Liverpool shirt? Oh, on social media, John Steenhuisen supports the same team as you. Uh-huh. Flex is laughing.
That's
Yeah. You and John Steenhuisen, Liverpool supporters. So I do have something to add. There we go.
That is so tough. What isn't tough is that very same Liverpool didn't lose this weekend. We played Brighton. We won 2-1. I was given a very hard time on the bounce group on WhatsApp.
Well, that's why you must go and sit and watch it with John Steenhuisen.
Well, I'd rather not.
Okay.
Liverpool won this weekend. Man City, on the other hand, they lost to Bournemouth. They lost 2-1 to Bournemouth. Man United, they drew 1-1 with Chelsea. Newcastle beat Arsenal 1-0.
Okay.
And Spurs, they beat Aston Villa 4-1, leaving the log to look a little something like this. Liverpool in first, City up in second, Forest of all teams in third, and then Chelsea in fourth. In the world of football still, there was also Carling Knockout Cup this weekend. I can't see my laptop. I think I'm blind.
Well, you've just transferred it right across your face, which looked great on
Probably
camera. It's
not
lovely.
that well.
Okay, so try again.
Carling Knockout Cup was this weekend. Galanza through Sundowns humbled Chiefs 4-0. That was quite the result. And Richards Bay beat Cape Town City on penalties to advance. We don't know what the results are. Just the fixtures are just yet for the next round of games. But we will find out, I think, today. In the world of Formula One, Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie.
Oh,
I don't
yeah,
know if
what's he
you've
done?
seen in the last week? He's really driving efforts to get Formula One back in South
I
Africa.
know he toured Kailami the other day,
He did.
right? Yeah.
He did. They did a whole thing with
Yeah.
the FIA. They had a sit-down meeting,
Mhm.
and now the plan is to get the track to FIA regulations by 2027 for hopefully a South African Grand Prix. Did you know the first Grand Prix in South Africa was in 1961?
I did not, James.
I don't know what else happened in 1961, but that was a long time ago.
Before either of us were around. Okay, and that's saying something.
This weekend there was the Brazil Grand Prix. Max Verstappen starting in 17th, ended in first.
Jesus, is that how much he's penalized now with all these engines that Ben told us he has to keep replacing?
I think it is. It's almost weekly now that Red Bull are doing
17th.
upgrades.
And if
and
you started me at 17th, I'd be like, screw you guys, I'm going home.
That's 4 places from last, by
Yeah.
the way. And he fought his way all the way.
That's
to first.
amazing.
Yeah,
Then
incredible.
he really is the best.
I think he deserves to be the champion.
Yeah, good.
Also, Red Bull is just
Good. We've
Red
learned something there too.
Bull. So yeah, Max started up in 17th, finished first. Lando, his current rival, I guess you could say, only finished in 6th. 3 races to go until the end of the Formula One season. In the world of cricket, New Zealand whitewashed India 3-0 in their 3-match series, which is also wild. And then lastly, international rugby is kind of back. The Boks are only in action next weekend, but there were some international fixtures. This past weekend, England played New Zealand. The result there, 22-24 to the English. And then Scotland played Fiji 57-17 to Scotland. And that's the sport.
All right, very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, James.
I will see you
No
later.
problem. All right, so while we're getting ready for our next guest, who I'm very excited to talk to, I actually saw her at a birthday party of a mutual friend the other day, and she's got something to tell us that I think there's a gap in the market here to talk about this. I want to tell you this quickly. Thieves conducted a botched heist at the MPV Gallery, which you've never heard of. It's in the Netherlands, stealing a screen print of Queen Elizabeth II and another of Queen Margaretha II of Denmark, both by Andy Warhol. Now, the thieves forcefully entered the gallery, causing significant damage, and attempted to take 4 works by Warhol out. It was called Reigning Queens. However, they abandoned the prints of Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands and Dombien Twala due to size issues, which damaged the works beyond repair. The incident was captured on security cameras. Dutch police are seeking witnesses. You know, I got to give these guys credit. At least they're trying to steal the art rather than just vandalize it like all these other people who throw soup on it and all the rest. So they tried, they failed. Let's eat. Apparently, the gallery owner did not disclose their value, but they were apparently scheduled for sale at an upcoming art fair. Now, what I don't get is that Andy Warhol's stuff is, I mean, these are screen prints, so he would have made them with a silk screening print, and I don't know whether that's necessarily as valuable as the actual texture of an oil painting, for example. But Andy Warhol, very famous. These are obviously well-known pictures. You got a picture of those? The Queen Elizabeth one's quite well known. It's almost like this Madiba one that I've got behind me. They kind of have very bold colors, and it's sort of just the outline, and then they have different parts of the painting painted in different colors. Andy Warhol, kind of very modernist, even postmodernist stuff. But there we go. You know, for those people who came this morning for the art, we had to give you something, I suppose. All right. I want to welcome to the show this morning Alisha Ramasar, who is an author and entrepreneur. And I got talking to her the other day about something called Picture Perfect, which I love. I mean, I love the title. It's a book inspired by her 2 princess superhero daughters who remind her daily that she's a mom first and Wonder Woman second. So I want to talk to you about this because women have this, and men do too, this identity crisis at some point in our lives. We're like, what are we?
No, absolutely.
And are we still trying to be young? Are we now accepting that we're old?
Yeah.
And especially for women, how do you look? How does that change the way that you look? How should you look? We were talking to Lynn earlier about how it's actually not a bad thing to look your age. But what got you to writing this book? And then we can talk a little bit about that.
So look,
afterwards.
it's actually not my background.
You've written a bunch of books.
I have. I've written 3 so far. But my first one, we're talking about Picture Perfect. I'm not a writer, guys. I'm actually really, really horrific at grammar.
Nonsense.
Not my thing.
There's 3 books. You've done more than most people.
Well, I can't. It still
Okay, the one
surprises
is
me.
very thin. We won't.
Yeah,
count
one
that.
is very thin. This is the kiddie version. So with Picture Perfect, it was actually during lockdown. I'm a bit of a creative, so the first thing I came up with was the cover. I knew, and
You
then
see?
it was just the girl in the rain with the umbrella.
Right.
And the name, Picture Perfect. I hadn't even put a word to paper yet. I had no idea what I was writing
It's a
about.
very catchy title.
That's what I thought. I thought I
Yeah.
can get somewhere. Maybe I'll print 10 copies, give them to a few people that I know, less judgmental people,
Right.
and be done. Bucket list item ticked. Then I started writing just on my phone. Wherever I was, I just had a thought and I just started writing. I think I wrote about 60% of it on my phone. And when I thought, let me try and get to 100 pages and then that'll be it. Got to 100, got to about 120. And then I thought,
James,
let me
how
just...
rude of you to just cross there while we were talking. Jesus.
No,
Sorry about
no,
that.
no.
Your producers trying to steal your limelight here. So yeah,
No, it's fine. So
you
yeah,
wrote
so
most
then
of it on your phone.
most of it on my phone. And then when I finally got to like 120 pages, I gave it to one of my cousins to have a read. I was like, hey, have a look. she read it. She's like, I think you should do something with this. So I thought, right, let me just self-publish it, put it on KDP, Kindle. And that week, I actually got an email from a publishing house in the UK. And they were like, we love it. There's such a space for it. We'd like to publish it. Signed the contract.
There is. Okay, so you didn't see the gap and say, I'm going to write for this.
No.
This is something you were going through.
Just for myself.
Okay, so explain what you were going through and why you decided to write it, because I think that's where most people will.
So I was
identify.
just in the point where, we tend to hide so much from our peers. We tend to want to put forward
especially in the advent of social media, right?
Absolutely.
Everyone's like, Instagram is
Right.
perfect. Your life is amazing.
It's smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, of course. Bullshit.
So, and I just kind of used it as a bit of a diary format, some place where I can just vent and just say what I wanted to say and just be brutally honest, thinking obviously no one would read it.
And what were you venting about?
So everything. So every chapter is a different scenario in a life of a woman. Primarily, I thought of women in their 30s and things they would think about honestly, things that they would want to say, but nobody actually ever said it. So each chapter is different. So for instance, there's a chapter on Christmas with your in-laws.
No.
There's a chapter on IVF. There's a chapter on brunch.
Sure.
So there's different scenarios that women kind of go through. Everything from trying to keep up with, keeping up with the Kardashians, even with having the limited edition designer handbag, the perfect red lip, whatever it was, but also just proving to people that actually everything's pretty perfect. Nothing is the way it seems.
I really love the title. And when
Thanks.
you told me about it the other night, we were actually at my ex's birthday party.
I didn't know you guys were exes.
Yeah, we were together for like 4 years. So how did you meet her?
School.
Oh, you were at school together.
No, our kids.
Oh, your kids are at school
This
together.
is my new social circle.
So I think it's interesting because you're bringing up a lot of things that everybody's going through, right?
Yeah.
And in particular women here. And it's interesting to me how women are hugely and insanely competitive with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Even after they got the kids, they got the husband, they've got the house, the lifestyle, the kind of things that they want, they're still massively, and the same is true for guys. The guys are just competitive in a slightly different way, but we're always looking to establish hierarchies and orders and figure out where we are in that pecking order. And it's amazing how much pressure there is on moms. I mean, you mentioned schools, right?
Yeah.
And I think about how, the kids aren't the ones saying, look at the car that she's driving she's driving. Not when they're young anyway.
No.
It's the moms.
It's the
like,
parents,
what's your mom wearing? You dare not get out of the car in your like slippers and dressing gown, right? At certain schools. That's probably in your book too.
Yeah.
And then you've got the moms competing with like their kid has to do all the extramural activities.
Absolutely.
And then the mom's rushed off her feet, driving them from here to there to everywhere. It's hell.
Totally. It is hell. Look, I never thought of myself as a housewife or as a whatever it is. But nowadays, after 12, I completely released myself to becoming my own au pair. That's just the way I see it. I'm like, you know what? This is it. You're going to do everything for everyone else.
This is what your life's amounted to.
Yeah.
You're just basically, you're an unpaid au pair.
Absolutely.
But you got 2 daughters.
So I've got 2 little girls, 10 and 6. They're full of drama, full of life.
Well.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
That would be normal. You'd be worried about a girl who wasn't a little bit of drama at that age.
Yeah. So look,
and what are they teaching you that informs these books too?
So much. Look, from the time they were born, I mean, I've been through the works. I've been through severe postpartum depression.
Oh.
And that's one of the themes in both my books. And I think it's so important to talk about it. I've become the biggest advocate for someone to talk about, postpartum depression, anxiety, whatever it is that goes with that. And being on medication, I think that is almost vital these days.
Sure.
So the girls have really, they've taught me a lot about life. Aside from, how to cope and deal with day to day, they just kind of also teach me to just chill. I mean, there's another chapter on being schooled by a 6-year-old. It's the truth. And you sit back and you think, fuck, when did I become?
But Alicia, when you write this book, aren't you worried in the beginning anyway?
Yeah.
About being judged? Because you're admitting a lot of things that the rest of them don't want to admit.
Yeah.
There are a lot of these other women who are going through probably exactly the same things you are.
Absolutely.
Maybe even more severe versions of it sometimes They're not saying anything.
Yeah.
So why did you decide, screw that, I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to say what's going on.
Well, look, with the first book, I didn't think anyone was going to read it. So right now it feels like people are reading my diary. So it's a little bit of like oh, fuck, what have I said?
Yeah.
And my hubby does that too. He's like, oh shit, people are going to think this is real. I'm like, it is real. What are you talking about? And then I was like, I just think, but with the second book, Finding 40, I went into it knowing now people would read it, right? And I just had to get myself into a mindset of thinking, I don't give a fuck what people say. I'm just going to write it because this is what people want to hear.
But isn't that also a function of being 40?
This is
It's like
the
not
thing.
giving a shit, right?
This is
I mean,
the thing.
the famous thing, the audience have heard me say this before, so I hope you guys aren't going to be irritated when I say it again. But in your 20s, you care enormously about what other people think. In your 30s, you stop caring what other people think. But in your 40s, you realize they weren't thinking about you anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, look, I'm not 40 yet.
Okay, you're
I've
still
written
getting
this
there.
book,
Well,
yeah.
that's why I'm saying it's.
Yeah. This is what I anticipate is going to happen. And that's what this book is kind of about. It's about finding that space of actually not caring what people think. So the first one, Picture Perfect, is a lot about being in your 30s and those sort of scenarios. Finding 40 is really about almost trying to let go of those perceptions and that pressure and releasing yourself to kind of just focusing on yourself.
Judith says, as a woman, for me, it depends on the kind of circles you engage with. Me and my friends put no pressure on each other whatsoever. Choose friends wisely and be mature about it. I mean, having the right friends is an important thing. Right?
Absolutely. I don't think it's so much about the friends that put pressure on you. I think it's you putting pressure on yourself.
Mm.
I mean, it's aside from what you see, it's everything that you kind of thought you would achieve in your life by a certain point, right? You've watched movies when you were little, you've kind of thought you'd be in a certain place in your life and maybe you're not, and then you put pressure on yourself and you judge yourself and you think perhaps I should be doing something better, and then you finally see somebody who's doing something different and then you think, oh crap, why am I not there? So yeah, I think it's a lot of pressure we put on ourselves, and I do agree. Look, your circle is extremely, extremely important, and I love my circle. They don't judge me to myself. They don't judge me, I don't think. Sometimes I do think they do judge me, but I still think that the judgment comes a lot from ourselves, internalized, what we think.
Of course,
ourselves.
because as I said just now, you realize eventually they weren't thinking about you at all.
Yeah.
They've got their own shit going on in their heads.
Yeah.
They're sitting there thinking, oh, what am I going to do about this husband of mine? Or I'm feeling fat, or
Yeah.
I've got to save money on this, or spend here, or do that with my business, or whatever else they're doing. They're not thinking about the same things that you are, and they're certainly not thinking like, oh, I wonder how Alicia's doing with this and that. And they might be very empathetic people who might think a little bit more about others than themselves, but I reckon it's still about an 80-20 ratio.
Yeah, I think
Most people are thinking about themselves and the immediate things they have to do.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely. And also just facing the fact that you are thinking about those things. I think a lot of the time you want to deny that you're having these thoughts about yourself.
What were the most uncomfortable realizations you had when writing this, and that you've heard from people now that they're published, that you heard from people, oh my God, that was tough to read because I've been going through the same thing maybe.
Yeah. So it was definitely loss. It was death.
Yeah.
The first book, I spoke a lot about the experience of death. Firsthand, having seen my dad just die in front of my eyes. It was like really rough. So that was the first book. Spoke a lot about that chapter of my life. And then the second book, I speak a lot about the aftermath of loss. So for me, that's a really, really important topic, because even in my network, there have been so many people that have lost parents, specifically, that, it's a hard thing to understand unless you go through it yourself. And the things that I say in the books, I think, are just the raw truth of what you feel and the harsh reality of what happens after somebody dies. You hear things, you expect people to be there for you. You think you think your family is your family. But when somebody dies, something happens and, everything kind of shifts, and nobody warns you about that. So with death, I think, and loss, those have been like that's been the one major thing that people have come to me and said, my God, you said it exactly as I felt it. I've been through that. And
Wow.
yeah, so that was really a big part of it for me. And aside from those 2 chapters, it kind of lingers on through the rest of your life and into other chapters. Theoretically, it does impact you.
Having not read it yet,
Yeah.
with regard to the death thing, I mean, I've heard lots of people say that you only really become an adult
Yeah.
when you lose a parent.
Yeah, I would believe that.
You think that's right?
Yeah, I would believe that. I think, I lost my dad when I was 28, and it's still, it really affects me to this day.
Sure.
It's hardcore. It's everything that goes with death. It's the whole experience, the trauma of having to go through that moment of the last breath and being like, what the fuck just happened? And how is this happening? And is this really happening to me? And how am I going to deal with this? And who's helping me? And, where do I turn to? Realizing that actually there's no one you can turn to. It's yourself. You have to, me, I'm the eldest, and I felt like I had to really pick up and take care of everybody and look like, kind of handle the situation as much as I could. And I'm sure my sister felt the same way. It's been a journey. And then aside from all of that, it's then dealing with the people and the drama. And you'll be surprised how the people that are closest to you, how they react towards you when somebody dies.
What do you mean?
So, it's death, I didn't realize, brings a lot of questions, materialistic questions.
Oh?
So then it becomes what's mine, what's yours?
Oh, like fighting over the possessions.
Fighting over the possessions.
Wow. I've heard some horror stories.
No, it's really...
Like families that are so close that they love each other, and someone dies and they're like, that sideboard, I'm going to fight you to the death for.
Absolutely.
They're like, before, nobody cared about the sideboard,
Yeah.
but suddenly it becomes an issue, huh?
No, absolutely. And you begin questioning yourself. You question, did I even actually ever have a family? I remember at one point I said to my mother, they were going to have one of these family meetings. And I said to her, look, I don't want to go for this because every time I go, I end up like saying something and people get really angry at me. So I said, Mom, I don't care what comes out of this. All I want to know is at the end of it, do I have a family or do I not?
Sure.
That was kind of where I left it with her. And anyway, it didn't end there, carried on. And that goes into part of the aftermath of it. And then aside from having to deal with that drama, you're still reliving this whole experience. And, like you go through life without this person that you relied on your whole life. Whether I need to pick up the phone and be like, which bolt do I get for this? Or, what do I do? My tap's not working. Or
and he was your go-to guy for all that.
He was my go-to for everything. And he really almost needed his approval to do anything.
Sure.
Even if I got a promotion at work, it was like, thanks so much. I'll come back to you. I'm so excited. Dad, guess what happened? Okay, what do you think? Yeah, so it was a tough one, but we learned to deal with it. It's something you grow with. It doesn't ever leave you. It just shifts.
What are the more ridiculous things that, because just as you have the ones that change your life forever,
yeah,
right? And that are worth an aftermath because you actually need time to process stuff and it's a big deal. What about the things that are stupid that you think are important, especially when you're younger, and then later on you realize like that was so dumb, you're almost embarrassed by it? You know?
Look, there's a bit on designer handbags, brunch.
Why is a designer handbag such a big deal?
Listen,
I saw a bag. Someone I know has this bag, which is apparently it costs, I don't know, like $10,000.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe that.
And to me, it doesn't look like much of a fancy bag. And people are apparently, just women in particular, would be, are willing to sell the kid into slavery for this bag.
Absolutely. It's crazy.
What's the bag thing? What is that? I need to understand it.
It's so bizarre, but we all put so much pressure on ourselves to have this LV. and especially the Neverfull, it went through the stage of like everybody needed that tote, that LV tote.
Right.
And then I was in that space for a while, and you see a corner of it in a little Instagram post. You know, you get those little aerial views of your coffee and your little magazine, and then you get a little side view of your LV or whatever it was. I was very much in that.
Is this
space
also what
as
was
well.
happening? Is people posting pictures of them with their bag?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's a status symbol.
It's a status symbol, absolutely.
But if everybody has it, does it still have status?
This is the thing.
Because
But
once all the moms in the mom group, or once all the friends in a friend group have it, then it doesn't have the shine anymore, right?
Well, then you evolve to the limited edition, right?
Oh God, what's a limited edition?
Yeah,
How much does that cost?
It's crazy. That will be your $10,000 your bag, your $10,000 bag. But what was funny, I just went to Turkey actually, and I went there and I thought, okay, I've heard that they do a lot of counterfeit stuff.
All the Fong Kong you
Yeah.
could wish for.
Yeah, they do a lot of that. And I was like, okay, should be interesting. Look, if I see a Christian Dior sandal, maybe I'll get that, and then that'll be okay. But gosh, when I got there, shivers. I've got a couple of designer handbags that I really overly invested in my early 30s. And now I get to this place and I see on the streets the same bag in every color you could possibly imagine.
wow.
And I'm like, oh, fuck. Shit, no, this really hurts actually.
Because your real one cost
it hurts.
a lot
I
of
was
money.
really upset.
And it was a big deal for you when you got it. You were
Absolutely.
so happy.
Yeah.
And that feeling lasted maybe a little bit longer than
Yes.
most things. And then you
No.
suddenly see you could buy the Fong Kong version for a couple of Turkish lira.
Exactly.
Ugh.
Oh God. So anyway, I got back home. I was like, right then, all designer bags back in the cupboard. I need a South African, genuine leather, no brand, daily handbag. This is what I was after.
Yeah.
I was like desperate for it. I'm like, right.
Okay, well,
no
I
more
mean,
brands.
I can't relate to the bag thing, but I will say that I used to spend a lot of money on like branded clothes. This is in my early 20s,
Yeah.
when you're an idiot. And I would buy T-shirts with stuff written on them or
Yeah.
whatever. I won't go near it now.
Yeah.
I will buy the most ordinary, unbranded stuff, but in large volumes,
Yeah.
and just wear the same kind of T-shirt
Yeah.
for 5 days in a row.
Yeah.
Different color maybe, but that's it. That's
Yeah.
about as adventurous and creative as I get.
Yeah.
It's weird how that also starts to happen
It
to you.
does. Yeah.
You can't tell someone in their 20s, don't buy that, it's a waste of money. They have to go through it themselves.
Exactly. They need the Balenciaga
And
sneakers.
you do. And like a lot of girls will have to just spend an enormous amount of money on bags for a long time, and it'll keep the economy going. So it's not all bad. But then they'll realize at some point this is dumb.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely.
I don't know when that moment comes. For different people, it's different places.
Yeah. But that's definitely one of the stupider topics that I think you'll grow to understand.
And by the way, for some people it's shoes. For some people it's cars.
Yeah. Watches.
You can have really expensive watches.
Big thing.
Oh, some people, especially like guys with watches,
Yeah.
it becomes like an obsession.
Hectic.
I mean, thank God I've never had that
It
issue.
makes your designer handbag range look like
Yeah.
something from Mr.
Because
Price.
that's big money.
Yeah.
These guys are buying like these hundreds of thousands of dollars in hand jewelry.
Yeah, but the thing with watches
Come on.
is that at least it maintains some sort of value over the years.
If you know what you're doing, apparently.
If you know what you're
It's
doing,
investment. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
That's how they sell it.
but not bags.
Yeah. It's like, but people have said that about sports cars.
Yeah,
They've
true.
said that about all kind of books, everything.
True.
And I don't know so much.
Yeah.
You got to find a buyer.
Yeah.
That's not so easy. And the things that your kids can teach you.
Yeah.
I mean, you said you learned lots of lessons from when your daughter was 6.
Yeah.
But
That little
what
one.
kinds of things do your kids and even other people's kids teach you?
Look, the thing is, when I wrote Picture Perfect, it was for women, right?
Mhm.
But at the same time, I started noticing that my daughter and my nephews and nieces and their friends were all kind of experiencing this same sort of life experience where they were also questioning, how come they're not perfect? How come they're not the best?
Oh,
How come they're not in the A team?
right.
So then I thought, shit, now I need to actually figure out a way to tell the kids that it's okay to also not be okay. And imperfection's actually much better.
That's where the second book
So
came
that's the
in.
second book, Perfectly Imperfect Me. And it's just a...
No, that's about the length I could read.
Yeah. It's just a sweet little book with a very nice message from the adults in the back to kind of just
read it to me.
It says,
the back
"Dear
bit.
kids, be kind and have courage. When things are tough, life is a journey and you are enough. Love from the adults."
I like that.
Yeah, so I think it's that's been something that's been really eye-opening to me, is the amount of pressure they put on themselves. It's hectic, down to writing exams at grade 4.
I mean, I think it's also, you're a bit younger than me, but we didn't have social media when I was growing up. And thank God, because the pressure that piles on, in particular, girls, because, you know, girls, there's the way that they grow up and the way that they interact with each other is just so much more complex. There are emotional things that come into it. And there's a kind of bullying that girls do that guys don't. Guys just will beat each other up at worst. And then they'll be over it the next day. But with girls, there's kind of a long tail. It follows you wherever you go. The mean girls, you know, you get the girls who are the most popular, and then you get the girls who are just like left cast out forever.
Yeah.
And it seems to me like this is a real challenge. I often say, oh, what a lot of bullshit. People have got to get over it.
Yeah.
Life is good. We live in the best time. All that shit that I was talking about earlier. But this is a new challenge.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether we've cracked it yet.
No,
I think
I
there are
think it's
so many young women who are growing up in the most appalling state of not feeling perfect.
Yeah.
Constantly feeling as if they're being judged, never good enough.
Yeah.
That book is probably a great place for a lot of them to start.
Yeah, I think so. And the challenge is, as a parent, how do you teach that?
Jeez.
How do you teach that it's okay when things aren't perfect? When, you know, from the time they're babies, you're like, oh my God, you're the best thing ever. And I love you so much. And you're absolutely amazing. And you're my baby. And, you know, you kind of instill this thing in them from the time they're born.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden at like 9, 10, you're like, actually, if you didn't make the C team, that's okay. It's okay. And then all their friends are like, oh no, I'm in the A, I'm in the B, I'm in the whatever it is.
Jesus.
You know, it's a hard one to try and deal with. And like you said, the thing is, girls are mean, actually.
Yeah.
Girls are mean.
Do you ever wonder whether your daughters are the mean ones or that the others are mean to them? Or do you think it's about a half and half?
Well, look, my eldest is, in my eyes, she's a saint. She's got such a kind heart, and she sticks up for people at school. It really amazes me. She teaches me a lot.
That's lovely.
About that. Like, I'll be sitting late at night. She'll be like, oh, Mom, this Afrikaans teacher yelled at all of us. And she said, we can't talk. And all we wanted to do was ask if we can go to the bathroom. And I was like, right, fuck that. I'm going to send a message. I'm going to write, right, let me type out a thing. I'm like, right, Ava, I'm going to send this message. And she's like, Mom, maybe you shouldn't send that message. Maybe we should just give it some time. And I think,
what a smart kid.
Yeah, she's a smart kid. But my second one.
No impulsive stupidity coming from her.
No, she's wise. She's an old soul, that one.
That's very impressive.
Yeah, she's amazing. But my second one, look, she comes with a fair amount of drama. And I will question. I don't actually know if she's where she stays on the playground. Really, I don't.
But also, you don't know if she's a reliable source, right? Because she makes stuff up.
She'll make stuff up. She'll be like, oh.
My youngest nephew's the same.
Yeah.
The biggest bullshit stories you've ever heard. And it's not coming from a bad place. He's not trying to be deceitful.
No.
It's like an imaginative, creative thing that he's made. He's got a story in his head.
Yeah.
And it's not attached to reality a lot of the time. He's not being malicious, but if you believe him, you're going to look like an idiot because you're going to say to the teacher, what is this I heard about? She'll go, huh?
Yeah.
And you'll be very embarrassed because you'll have to walk it all back.
Yeah.
Like,
no,
oh, he told me complete nonsense.
The second kids, they seem to come with an innate sense of knowing more things than they should be knowing. I mean, we were doing Halloween the other day.
Yeah.
And one of the houses had stuck a red balloon out of a drain, which kind of had this whole Pennywise thing. Yeah. So it was kind of cool. And the parents were like, oh, that's so cool, so clever. And Isla, my little one,
You've given me a great idea. I've never been into Halloween, but I'm thinking for next year, there's a drain right outside my house.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to put a monster in there with a little red balloon. But anyway, you were saying?
So anyway, she was like walking with us. She goes, yeah, that's cool. I'm like, you're 6, doll. You don't know why that's cool. And then she goes, Mom, I know Pennywise. I was like, oh, holy mama. How did
she? The internet?
The internet, 100%. it's YouTube. And like I try to, kids YouTube and
Yeah.
what are you watching? What are you listening to? Turn that crap off.
Yeah.
But somehow they still pick up things. And on one hand, I'm like, oh,
Scary.
scary. On the other hand, I'm like, okay, I can talk to her about it and be like, this is not real. But she knows now, they get these stupid YouTube videos that are like, subscribe if you love your mother. I'm like, Isla, that's not real, doll.
Is that what they're doing?
That's what they
to
do.
try and manipulate
That's what they do.
likes?
Like and subscribe if you love your mother.
You love your mother.
Like and subscribe if you believe in God.
You know what I'm going to do for this podcast from now on? Like and subscribe if you love your mother, and like and subscribe if you believe in God.
Yeah.
Do it, because otherwise you're going to burn in hell. How's that? Okay, so someone says here, and I think this is an interesting point too. I'm glad we don't give a fuck. I think it's the over 40 thing. Do you think that there's as much pressure, and maybe this is a controversial place to take it, but once women have found a husband and they're married, do you think that makes them less competitive with the women who are not married yet?
No, 100% not.
Really?
Absolutely.
Because I sometimes see single girls behaving, or newly divorced girls, behaving very differently to the ones who are married. And there's like a little bit of rivalry, but it's not the same kind of rivalry.
Yeah. Well, look.
Explain that to me a little.
I think they're
I'm making you the expert today.
Okay, well, look, I'm no expert, but I'll tell you the way I see it. The thing is that when you don't have a husband and a family, yes, there is competition. It's one type of competition, right? But when you do have a husband and a family, it's still there. It's just slightly different. Everybody's competing regardless. They're competing, in the sense of, I've got a holiday home.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the same
totally,
thing.
It's one-upmanship. It's keeping up with the Joneses.
Yeah, so that competition is still very much there. But there is a sense of wanting to be supportive and a sense of, sisterhood, and let's try this.
I don't know.
But
I don't
deep
believe
down,
any of that
yeah,
shit. I don't think there's any of that
I've seen
sisterhood
it.
thing.
No, I've seen it. And it really upsets me, actually. I get quite upset by it, especially now that I've written these books. You write the first one and people are like, oh my God, it's amazing you've written a book. These are people close to you.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, wow, I'm going to tell everybody. I'm going to support you. I'm going to go and buy the book. Choose Bob. Have they bought the book?
No.
Choose Bob. Have they
haven't.
shared a picture
No.
of it? No.
They talk a big game.
Yes. And then I sit back and I think,
bitches.
And my hubby's like, don't let it upset you. Just, relax.
Okay, so the example that comes up from a conversation I had recently, friend of mine, single woman, she goes to visit her friend who's married, and then she feels kind of bad because the husband is three-wheeling, because the two girls are talking to each other and they're talking about all the stuff that they have in common and the things they like, and they're laughing and telling stories. And the husband's sort of wandering around because she doesn't have a guy with her for him to talk to. She almost feels like she's imposing on them or whatever. And he feels a bit bored, she thinks, when she's there on her own.
Yeah, I can understand.
Is that also a thing?
Yeah, I think that's a thing. That's real. I mean, that's normal.
I go to weddings and parties on my own. I never think about that.
Really?
Never bothers me.
That's interesting.
Ever. In fact, half the time you're meeting people and talking to people, and you can get away quickly because you don't have to wait for your partner.
Yeah.
you know what it's like.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so you get out quickly.
I definitely feel what your friend felt. Even with my bestie, I can pop into her house if it's her and her hubby there. My hubby didn't pop in with us.
Mm-hmm.
I'll still feel like a little bit uncomfortable until he goes away.
Oh, yeah.
Until he walks out of the kitchen. I'm like, oh, thank God. Now I feel like I can talk to you.
There's almost a sense of relief.
Yeah, it's weird. But then when my hubby's there, it's a different vibe. Then I'm like, okay, 2 guys, 2 girls.
It's balanced.
It's balanced. But the minute that he's not there and then her hubby is there, it's like it's a weird feeling. And I've known him for years, since I was a kid, and I'd still feel uncomfortable.
I love that you've written these books.
Thanks.
Just go through them again, let people,
so
and let us know where we can get them if people.
Okay, so all my books are at Exclusive Books. Take a lot.
Or good. They're all exclusive as well.
Yeah,
very good.
Very cool. So you can DM me otherwise on my Instagram by Alisha Ramasar, and I will send you a signed copy.
Alisha Ramasar.
Yeah. Picture Perfect. It's a perfect book for women who don't have the time to read. Then we've got Perfectly Imperfect Me, which is the kiddie version, primarily for 8 to 10-year-olds, I'd
That's
say.
a good idea. Like, get that one if you've got kids who are worried about being perfect.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
And the new one that just launched this week is called Finding 40. And it's a witty guide for women who swear they're still 29.
Hey, do you think age is in the mind? You think age
Yes.
is just a number?
I do now. You know, I look at my mother and I look at my mother-in-law, and roughly 60s, right?
Yeah.
Very, very different people.
Just be careful. Don't
I
say which
know.
is which.
I know.
But I hear you.
Very different
Yeah,
people.
you get. Listen, I know people who are half my age who are already old.
Yeah.
I know people who are double my age that have more energy than most people.
Yeah,
half their
absolutely.
age. So
Gary Player, that's the golfer,
Jesus,
right?
Gary Player. Yeah, I mean, Ben from our sports show interviewed him last week.
He's amazing.
And Gary Players, I think he's how old is he now? 90?
89.
89.
I just saw a clip
What?
of him the other day.
I mean, look, he's a crotchety, grumpy man. He'll sometimes say and do things which he probably shouldn't. But you almost earned the right at that stage to be a little eccentric and weird.
Yeah.
And I think it's totally in the head.
Absolutely.
If you have energy and you have dynamism and you have a personality, it almost doesn't matter anymore.
No, exactly.
I mean, I thought what Lynn said this morning before you arrived was probably a really interesting point too. There's something about women between 40 and 80. You can't really place where exactly on that spectrum they are, because it can entirely depend on the way they dress.
Yes.
What they say.
Absolutely.
Makeup. It could be any of those things.
Yes.
And you actually don't know. And
Yes.
certainly guys don't think about it and go, wonder if she's 40 or 50. Because they're like, to us, between 40 and 80 is like it could be anything.
And that's so true.
Yeah.
That is so I've seen
So
it.
don't be afraid. But I love this. And you can
Thank
get the
you.
books at exclusive, and you can also get hold of Alicia online.
Yep. Or take a
DM
lot.
her and take a lot. Very
Yeah.
good.
Thank
All right.
you.
Well, nice to have you here.
Thanks for having
Happy
me.
Monday, and I hope you have a good week.
You. Thanks. You
Thanks,
too.
Alicia.
Thanks.
Hope you have a good week too. We will be back on Wednesday morning, bright and early at 6 o'clock. Have an awesome day. Cheers, everybody.
Een heel leuk restaurant met de lekkerste gyros. Hun nemen